Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into some stuff you sent in on federated machine learning.
Federated machine learning.
Yeah, FML, right.
It's kind of a mouthful, but a pretty big deal when you think about, AI and data privacy and all that.
It is, and that's why we're taking a deep dive today. So for those who haven't heard of it, what exactly is FML?
So basically, imagine like it's a way to train AI models, but without actually collecting all the data in one place.
Okay, so instead of having everyone bring their ingredients to one giant kitchen, we're sending out little chefs to each person's house.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like picture this, you got your smartphone, your computer, even hospitals. They all have tons of data, right?
Right.
But they don't want to just give it all away. So in FML, these data holders, we call them clients, they keep their data.
Ah,
They
okay.
train a copy of the model on their own data. And then instead of sending all that data to some big server, they just send back like a little update.
An update, like what they've learned.
Exactly. Just the important bits, like the whole recipe book, just like a couple key ingredients. These are called model parameters.
Oh.
Then there's like this central server, kind of like a conductor. It takes all these updates from all the clients and combines them.
Okay, so it's learning from everyone, but no one's spilling all their secrets.
You got it. And the cool thing is, this central model, it keeps getting better with each round of updates, but, never actually sees any individual client's raw data.
So it's like we're all helping to bake a better cake, but no one has to reveal their grandma's secret recipe.
Exactly. And that's where things get really exciting because think about healthcare.
Okay.
Hospitals, they could collaborate on like a global model to predict diseases, stuff like cancer.
But without sharing all their patients' data, right?
Exactly. And that's just one example. Think about like financial institutions using FML to, spot fraud.
So it's not just about privacy then, it's about everyone working together.
It is. It's about leveraging the collective wisdom without, compromising individual privacy.
That's amazing. But isn't there a ton of data involved in all this? Like, wouldn't transferring it all be a nightmare?
That's the thing. With FML, you're only sending those little updates, not the whole data set. So it's way more efficient bandwidth-wise.
Ah, I see.
Like imagine sending a postcard instead of shipping a whole truckload of, whatever.
Okay, that's a pretty good analogy. So it's efficient, it protects privacy. This FML thing sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, and it can work on a massive scale. Think about all the smartphones out there. They could all contribute to improving, say, voice recognition.
Wow. So my phone is secretly becoming a language expert.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's so efficient, it can handle all those devices, millions of them, without, bogging everything down.
So it's efficient, private, scalable. This FML thing sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, it's not without its challenges.
There's always a catch, right?
One of the big ones is like data heterogeneity. You got all these different devices with different kinds of data.
Yeah.
So getting them to play nice together, that's a bit of a puzzle. It's like trying to bake a cake with ingredients from all over the world. Some might be fresher than others.
Right. So it's not as simple as just mashing it all together.
No. The researchers are working on ways to deal with that, though.
Yeah.
Like federated averaging. It helps the model learn from all this different data without actually seeing it directly.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like figuring out how to adjust the recipe based on where the ingredients came from. What other challenges are out there?
Well, all this back and forth communication between the devices and the server, it can put a strain on networks.
Makes sense.
And of course, security is a big one.
Oh, right. If we're talking about all this data, security has to be a top concern.
Exactly. Things like model poisoning attacks, where someone tries to mess with the model, inject bad data, that kind of thing.
So like adding a rotten egg to the cake batter.
Yeah, something like that. But researchers are working on ways to make FML more secure, using things like secure aggregation.
Secure aggregation. What's that?
It's a way to protect individual updates, so even the central server can't see them directly, only the combined result.
Oh, that's clever. So it's kind of like having a blind taste test, where you can judge the final cake but not tell which baker used which ingredients.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of device limitations.
Ah, right. Not every device is a supercomputer, right?
Exactly. Some devices, like smartphones, have limited power and, battery life.
Yeah.
So FML has to be lightweight enough to work on those too.
Right. It can't drain your phone battery just because it's learning how to predict your next text message. So our researchers working on that too.
They're developing like super efficient algorithms. So FML can run even on those less powerful devices.
So we've got privacy, efficiency, scalability. We're tackling challenges like data differences, network strain, and security risks. And we're even making sure FML can run on our everyday devices. It's pretty amazing stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to FML and its potential. But maybe it's a good time for a quick recap before we dive any deeper. What would you say is the key takeaway about FML so far?
I think it's that FML lets us tap into the power of like collective intelligence, but without giving up our individual privacy.
I like that. It's like we can all work together to solve big problems without having to sacrifice our own data and privacy.
Yeah,
It's pretty revolutionary.
it is. So where do we go from here? What's next for FML? What's coming down the pipeline? We'll explore all that and more when we come back after a short break. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone. We were just talking about all the potential of federated machine learning.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, are there any real-world examples of this, actually happening?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of the most exciting areas is healthcare.
Okay.
Remember, we were talking about hospitals collaborating on like a global model to predict diseases.
Yeah, like that cancer prediction model.
Exactly. That's actually happening right now.
Wow, really?
Yeah, there's this consortium of like top cancer centers in Europe.
Okay.
They're using FML to train a model that predicts how a patient will respond to certain immunotherapy treatments.
So they're basically pooling all their knowledge to like improve cancer treatment, but without actually sharing any patient data.
Precisely. It's like having a, global team of doctors all working together,
Yeah.
but still respecting patient privacy.
That's incredible. Are there any other examples, maybe outside of healthcare?
Oh, tons. Take finance, for example.
Okay.
Banks are using FML to fight fraud,
Oh, yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, by training models on data from multiple banks, they can spot those like really tricky patterns that might slip past one bank on its own.
So it's like a team effort, like a financial crime fighting squad.
Exactly. And, it helps protect everyone involved.
That's amazing. So FML is already making a real difference out there in the world.
It is, and we're just scratching the surface.
So where do you see this all going? What's like the next big thing for FML?
One area that I'm really excited about is personalized education.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Imagine an app, right, that adapts to each student's individual learning style.
Okay, like a personal tutor in your pocket.
Yeah, kind of. It could track your progress, see where you're struggling. And then it suggests like tailored lessons and exercises just for you.
Wow, that would be amazing.
And the model could be trained on data from like thousands of students, so it's constantly getting better, but still, respecting everyone's privacy.
So every student gets the support they need without like their personal data being shared all over the place. That's a game changer.
It is. It's about empowering individuals, really. But of course, with any powerful technology, there are also, potential risks.
Oh, right. Like what?
Well, security is still a big one.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit earlier.
Yeah, things like model poisoning attacks, where someone tries to, like, sabotage the model.
So like adding a virus to the learning process?
In a way, yeah. But researchers are constantly developing, like, new safeguards. Secure aggregation, for example.
Right, right. That blind taste test thing.
Exactly. It helps protect individual updates from, prying eyes.
So we're trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
Always. But beyond security, there's also the issue of, like, bias.
Oh, right. Like making sure the models aren't, unfair to certain groups of people.
Exactly. If the data used to train the model is biased, the model itself can be biased, which can lead to, all sorts of problems.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we use it, right?
Exactly. It's about being responsible and making sure FML is used for good.
Okay, so we've got a lot to think about, but let's shift gears a bit and look toward the future.
Okay.
Where do you see FML going in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
One area that I find really fascinating is the combination of FML with, like, edge computing.
Edge computing. That's
Yeah.
where the processing happens, like directly on the device, right?
Exactly. So instead of sending all the data to the cloud, you can do a lot of the work right there on your phone
Yeah.
or, your smart refrigerator.
So it's like our devices are becoming even smarter.
In a way, yeah. And when you combine that with FML, you can have these really powerful AI applications running, right in your hand.
That's amazing. Any other exciting trends on the horizon?
Oh, definitely. Another area I'm keeping an eye on is the use of blockchain technology in FML.
Blockchain, like the thing behind Bitcoin.
The very same. Blockchain can provide that extra layer of, like, security and transparency that's so crucial for FML.
Okay, how so?
Imagine, like, every data contribution, every model update, it's all recorded on a blockchain.
So it's like tamper-proof.
Exactly. It creates this, permanent record that everyone can trust. It could be a real game changer for, building trust and accountability in FML systems.
So we're talking about edge computing, blockchain. FML is evolving
It
fast.
is. And as these technologies mature, we can expect to see even more, groundbreaking applications.
It's an exciting time to be following all this. But before we get too carried away with the future, maybe it's a good time to step back and consider the bigger picture.
What?
We've talked about how FML can empower individuals and communities, but are there any, potential downsides, like things we should be wary of as this technology becomes more widespread?
That's a really important question. And honestly, one of the biggest concerns is the potential for FML to, worsen existing power imbalances.
Oh, right. Like if only certain groups have access to this technology.
Exactly. If we're not careful, FML can end up creating new forms of digital inequality.
So even though it has the potential to be so democratizing, we need to make sure it doesn't end up widening the gap between the haves and have-nots.
Exactly. It's crucial that we work to ensure that FML is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
So accessibility, fairness, those are all things we need to keep in mind as FML continues to evolve.
Absolutely. And it's not just a technological challenge, it's a societal one.
It's a reminder that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's shaped by the choices we make and the values we prioritize.
Precisely. And that brings us to perhaps the biggest question of all. As FML becomes more prevalent, what role should governments and regulatory bodies play?
Ah, yes. That's the question we left everyone with before the break. Should governments take a hands-off approach, let the market figure it out, or do they need to step in and set some ground rules?
It's a tough one, for sure. Too much regulation could stifle innovation, but too little could lead to, all sorts of problems. It's about finding that balance.
I guess there are no easy answers when it comes to something as complex and rapidly evolving as FML.
Definitely not. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations to bring together policymakers, industry experts, researchers, and, the public.
So it's a team effort, just like FML itself.
Exactly. We need to figure this out together.
And I think that's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive. When we come back, we'll explore what the future holds for FML and what role governments and regulatory bodies might play in shaping that future. Stick around. Welcome back. So we've talked about the power of FML, the potential, the challenges.
The big question now is, what role should governments play in all this?
Right. Should they be hands-on, setting strict rules, or more hands-off, letting things evolve naturally?
Well, it's tricky, isn't it? Too much regulation and you risk, stifling innovation.
Right.
But too little. And, well, things could go wrong.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure.
Exactly. It's like you don't want to clip the wings of progress, but you also want to make sure it's flying in the right direction.
So how do we find that sweet spot?
I think that it starts with, open dialogue.
Okay.
Bringing everyone to the table.
Yeah.
Policymakers, experts, researchers, even the public.
Right. Get everyone's perspective.
Exactly. We need to understand, all the nuances of FML, both good and bad.
So what are some of the key areas that governments should be focusing on?
Well, data ownership and privacy, that's a big one.
Right, because with FML, the data stays on individual devices. But does that mean they have complete control over it?
It's a good question. And one that needs to be addressed, legally.
So maybe we need new laws, or at least update existing ones to account for this new way of handling data.
Possibly, yeah. We need to make sure individuals understand how their data is being used, even if it's not being directly shared.
Right. It's not just about keeping data secure. It's about transparency.
Exactly. People should have the right to access their data, correct it, even delete it if they want to.
So it's even though the data never leaves your device, you still have rights over it.
Right. It's about giving people control,
Yeah.
even in this decentralized world.
That's really important.
It is. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of bias, which we talked about before.
Right, and making sure the models are fair, that they're not discriminating against certain groups of people.
Exactly. And this is where, regulations can help.
How so?
Well, maybe by setting standards for, data quality.
Okay.
Or requiring more transparency in how these models are developed.
So that we can understand, how they're making decisions.
Exactly. And maybe even creating systems for like auditing these FML systems.
Like independent checks to make sure everything's running fairly.
Yeah, something like that. It's all about making sure this technology is used responsibly, ethically.
So it sounds like we're talking about a whole new set of rules, a whole new way of thinking about regulation tailored specifically for FML.
In a way, yes, it's a new frontier, so we need new maps.
It's exciting, but also a little daunting, right? Like we're building the plane as we're flying it.
In a sense, yeah. But that's also what makes it so fascinating.
It is, and I think it highlights just how important collaboration is.
Oh, absolutely. We need everyone working together, sharing ideas, coming up with solutions.
So it's not just about government setting rules, it's about creating a culture of responsibility around FML.
Exactly. Developers, researchers, industry leaders, everyone needs to be thinking about the ethical implications from the very beginning.
It can't be an afterthought like, oops, we forgot about ethics.
Right. It needs to be baked into the process from day one.
That's a great way to put it. And I think, education plays a big role in all this too.
Absolutely. The more people understand about FML, the better equipped we'll all be to make informed decisions about its future.
Right, because this isn't just some niche technology anymore. It's going to impact all of us in one way or another.
It is. It's going to change the way we work, the way we live, even the way we think about privacy.
So what can our listeners do? How can they be a part of this conversation?
Well, I think just being aware of FML, learning about it, that's a huge first step.
Right. And then maybe talking about it with friends, family, sharing what you've learned.
Exactly. The more we talk about these issues, the more we can shape the future of this technology.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical details of FML to the ethical considerations, the potential risks, the future possibilities.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. But one thing's for sure, FML is a force to be reckoned with. It's going to be fascinating to see where it takes us.
I agree.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions. The future of FML and the future of our digital world is ultimately in our hands. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.